Welcome everyone to our lecture on the topic of relative motion, and this is our lecture in continuation of the series of kinematics. So let us continue. So last time we were talking about that how to use the idea of subscripts in the equation of motion. That when you have some equation, let's say v is equal to u plus at. So how do we apply that equation in cases of relative velocities? So what we did was that we simply put a subscript BA beneath the velocities and accelerations in the whole equation to get a requisite equation. Similarly, we can use this idea for the cases of displacement for particle in t time. So when we are talking about displacement of the particle, we use the equation delta r is equal to ut plus half at square. And in the same way, what does delta rb represent? So here the delta rb represents displacement of particle b with respect to particle a. Similarly, what does uba represents? It represents the initial velocity of b with respect to a, and aba, it represents the acceleration of point b with respect to a, given the condition that the relative acceleration, that is aba, does not change with time. So let us apply to learn what does these equations actually mean in the context of our real world problems. So let us take our first question. So the starting questions would be on the basis of simple idea of applying the equations. So let us take our first question. The first question is, when a car moves with a speed of 2 kilometers per hour in some positive x direction, a bus is going in negative x direction with a speed of 10 kilometers per hour. So the first line says that the car is moving in positive x direction with 2 kilometers per hour. A bus is going in negative x direction with speed of 10 kilometers per hour. Find the velocity of the car with respect to bus. So here the bus is what is our observer, that is we will be observing the car from the bus. We are sitting in the bus and the bus is the frame of reference from which the whole world is being observed. So let us mark the bus with B, and let us say let us mark the car with C. So I want to observe the car with respect to bus, and I want to find the velocity of car with respect to bus. So here we have written the expression for velocities. We can also write velocity of car minus velocity of bus. So velocity of car, this expression velocity of car with respect to bus can be written as it is equal to velocity of car minus velocity of bus. So this is what we learned in the previous lecture, that if we want to observe something, that is we are observing the car, then we will subtract the velocity of the bus, that is what we are observing from. So we are observing from the bus, that means we will be subtracting the velocity of bus from the velocity of the car to get the velocity of car as seen by the bus. The velocity of car in our case is some 2 kilometers per hour and is positive x direction, 2 kilometers per hour in some positive x direction, and minus the velocity of bus. The velocity of bus is some 10 kilometers per hour and it is going in negative x direction, that is some minus 10 kilometers per hour. So as you can see, we have just used the sign which is given with the speed of the body, or the speed of the body or vehicle which we are observing. So we are taking the case with respect to bus, it's going in negative x direction. So we have simply used the negative sign with the speed of the body to find the velocity of the bus. So this is what we will do in the cases when the motion which we are studying in the question is simply constrained to one dimensional motion, that is in one dimension. So in that case, when the bodies are moving in a straight line, then we would only take the cases in which then we can simply assign some signs, that is negative sign and positive sign, and that would be sufficient to solve our questions. So we have taken the negative sign with the velocity of the bus to get the velocity of bus, that is minus 10 kilometers per hour, and similarly the velocity of car would be 2. So we use velocity of car as 2 and velocity of bus is minus 10 to get that answer 12 kilometers per hour. So here our answer carries a positive sign. That means that the bus would be seeing the car going in the positive direction with a velocity of 12 kilometers per hour. So let us draw a figure and try to visualize what has happened. Try to think that what our result is implying in the real world. And there is a car over here and there is a bus behind the car, and let me discuss one thing after drawing this one. So this is our car. The car is going in positive x direction with a 2 kilometers per hour, and the bus is going in negative x direction with 10 kilometers per hour. So both are going away from each other. That's why the distance between them would be increasing. So the question was that what would be the velocity of car as seen by bus? In which direction would the bus observe the car going into? So we know that the positive direction is the right one. So as we are observing with the bus, so let us fix a frame of reference with respect to bus. So this is the x direction, this is the y direction. So we have taken the rightward direction as positive, which is the convention, and the upward direction as positive y-axis. So the rightward direction is x, and this means that the bus would see anything going away from it in the x direction as something which would be having some positive velocity. So if you think about this case in a real life simple situation, that you are sitting in a bus which is going in some north direction, and the car is passed in a parallel road on a parallel road besides the road on which you are traveling on, and the car is going in opposite direction, simply the car is going in opposite direction, then you would say that you would see the car going away from you. And if you have chosen the x direction as seen in the figure, then you would say that the car would be going in that direction. That means the car would be having some positive velocity. So that's why our answer has a positive direction. And like I said, you have to subtract your velocity from the velocity of the car to get its velocity. So my velocity vector is some 10 kilometers per hour. To subtract our vector, what we do is that, if you remember, that we reverse the vector completely. So first we reverse the vector. So I have reversed my vector, velocity vector, that is velocity of the bus, that is 10, and then I add that velocity vector with the vector which I am supposed to subtract from. So I add 10 to the value of 2 to get the velocity, complete velocity of the car is, which is 12. So this is what we calculated algebraically, and we can also see this in a diagrammatic format. So this is one thing. The second thing which we can discuss about this problem is that what would be the case if, let's say, the bus is in front of the car, that is, it has not yet passed the car. Would the answer be same? So the answer would be yes. The answer would not change irrespective of the position of bus, that is whether the bus has passed the car or whether the bus is in front of the car, the equations of velocities of the car and the bus don't change. That is, those values don't change. So that's why the relative velocity of the car with respect to bus does not change. So which comes from a simple observation that when you are seeing the car, when you're sitting in a car or sitting in a bus and seeing a car coming in front of you on some parallel road, so you would see that the velocity of the car with respect to bus does not change when the car is approaching you and when the car has gone behind you. So the velocity of the car won't change in both the cases. So that's why this result which we have obtained. So let us move on to the next question. Okay, so now let us apply our concept of relative velocity for two dimension. So for two dimensional cases, there is a boat which is moving in a river with a velocity of 2 I cap plus 2 j cap with respect to river. The river itself moves with a velocity of 2 I cap meters per second. So you have to find the velocity of boat with respect to ground. So there is a boat which is moving in a river. You have given the velocity of the boat with respect to river and you are given the velocity of river. So what would be the velocity of the boat with respect to ground? So we are given this notation that velocity of boat with respect to ground, we can represent that by Vb. Velocity of boat with respect to velocity of river with respect to ground, that can be represented by Vr, and velocity of boat with respect to river can be represented by Vbr. So we can say that velocity of boat with respect to river, that would be velocity of boat minus velocity of river. This equation we know. So we are supposed to find the velocity of boat with respect to ground. To do that, we will just shift the Vr vector from RHS of the equation to LHS. So we get velocity of boat with respect to river plus velocity of river to get the velocity of boat. Velocity of boat with respect to river is some 2 I cap plus 2 j cap meters per second, and the velocity of river itself is some 2 I cap meters per second. So that means that we can imagine a scenario in which the boat is trying to go at an angle of some 45 degree with respect to the river. That is the velocity of boat with respect to river. But the river itself is taking the boat in the x-axis direction with some velocity of its own. So that's why the boat would travel in x direction a little bit faster, because the river is giving it some additional velocity in x direction, that is the I cap direction. That's why its velocity in I cap direction becomes 4 I cap and its velocity in j cap direction remains j cap, and this is the velocity of boat. The velocity of boat with respect to ground is 4 I cap plus 2 j cap meters per second. Okay, moving on to our next problem. So next case, we have a ball. A ball is dropped from a height of 100 meter above the ground. Another ball is projected upward simultaneously with a velocity of some 20 meters. So we have two balls. First ball is dropped from a height of 100 meters. Another ball is projected upwards with a velocity of 20. And the word simultaneously signifies that we are talking about the motions starting at the same time, that is t equal to 0. Both the motions have started at the same time. Find the velocity of the ball on the bottom as seen by the one on the top 1 second after the start of motion. So we have to find the velocity of ball on the bottom as seen by the one on the top. 1 second after the motion has started, the ball on the bottom is named A and the ball on the top is named B. Okay. So we have some cliff. Let us imagine some cliff. That cliff is some 100-meter high. This height is given to us, and a ball is dropped. So it is given some 0 initial velocity, and a similar ball is projected upwards with some velocity of 20 meters per second. And this is our initial velocity. Initial velocity of the ball B. The ball, whatever the name of the ball can be, ball on the bottom is named A. So this is given some initial velocity 20 meter per second, and we know that question has mentioned that upward direction is positive, and the initial velocity of the ball B is 0. So 1 second after the motion has started, what is the velocity of the ball on the bottom as seen by the one on the top? That means we are trying to find the velocity of the ball on the bottom, that is A, as seen by the one on the top, that is B. So that would be the velocity of the ball A minus the velocity of the ball B. Or we can use the formula which we learned that we can write again and again by using subscripts, that is V is equal to U plus AT. So we can simply write V is equal to U plus AT, and we can put subscripts AB at all the velocities and acceleration, and we will get the velocity of the ball A with respect to B at any t time. So this is the equation which we wrote, V is equal to U plus AT, and we use the subscript. So this is our application of the equation which we learned. So first, we have not used the vector signs over here because the motion is constrained in one direction, so no need to use vectors. Even if we use vectors, then there would be simply, the motion would be moving simply in j cap direction. So now let us talk about what is the relative acceleration of the two balls A and B. So as we had guessed, both the balls have same acceleration. That is, the acceleration of ball A is also minus g, acceleration of ball B is also minus g. So this gives the relative acceleration of ball A with respect to B as 0. So the relative acceleration is 0, and this can be remembered in general. So we can remember that whenever two bodies are moving not only single dimension, if they are moving in two or more dimensions, but they are moving in the same kinds of fields, same kinds of acceleration. That is, let's say there are two balls and they are projected at some angle theta, at different angles theta, and even at different times. So since they are projected in air on the same earth, then the acceleration due to gravity or their acceleration would be same, and since their acceleration would be same, the relative acceleration would be 0. So this equations become very simple. Since the relative acceleration is 0, the factor of time simply cancels itself out, which means that no matter what time, at what time would you observe, the initial velocity of the ball A with respect to B won't change at all, which is a pretty incredible result. That means when you would be seeing the ball A coming towards B, its velocity won't change at all throughout the complete motion, unless the ball A first hits the ground or the ball B hits the ground. So that is the motion which you would be observing, and that is what we are trying to learn, that when the ball A and ball B have same accelerations, then their relative acceleration becomes 0. And since relative acceleration is 0, that means their relative velocities won't change. Their individual velocities will change, their individual or their absolute velocities, This is the correct term. Then absolute velocities will change quite a lot. Now, as you can guess, the initial velocity of B would change by some 10 meters per second in 1 second, and the initial velocity of A would also change by 10 meter per second. That means its velocity would become 10 meter per second. Now you can guess, or you can quickly calculate also. The initial velocity of B would become some 10 meters per second in only 1 second of motion, and the velocity of the ball at the bottom would also become some 10 meter per second in 1 second of motion. So their individual velocities are changing, but because their relative acceleration is zero, that becomes the sole reason why their relative velocities are not changing. So their relative velocities would remain the same and would remain the difference of their initial velocity. The initial velocity of A with respect to B is some 20 meter per second minus initial velocity of ball B, which is 0. So the velocity of A with respect to B would be 20 meters per second at t equal to 1 second after the motion has started. So this gives us the answer to a question, and let us move ahead. So let us take one more question. A ball is dropped from a height of 20 meters at t is equal to 0. Another ball falls from the same height at some t equal to 1 time. So you have to find the relative velocity of the balls just after the first ball hits the floor, and just before the first ball hits the floor, and just after the first ball hits the floor, assuming the first ball rebounds without losing speed. So we are dropping two balls from some small height, actually that is 20 meters, and a second ball is dropped from the same height at t equal to 1. So from this idea we know that the relative velocities of the ball does not change when their relative acceleration remains constant or 0. When the relative acceleration remains 0, then the relative velocity does not change. So the same thing can be applied to this question also. So what we'll be doing is that let us imagine a cliff which is 20 meter in height. Now one ball is being dropped with some 0 initial velocity, and the second ball is also dropped. So what would be happening at t equal to 1 second? That is our concern. So at t equal to 1 second, the first ball would be somewhere here. It would have traveled some distance. There would be the first ball would be somewhere here, and the second ball would now start dropping. So this would be the situation at t equal to 1 second, right? The first ball would have traveled some distance downward, and the second ball is now going to travel downwards. Let's say the value of g is some 10 meter per second square. So what would be the velocity of first ball? The velocity of the first ball at t equal to 1 second would be some acceleration into time, that is 10 meter per second, and the velocity of the second ball at t equal to 1 second would be 0, that because it is being dropped. So we know that during subsequent motion, until and unless one of the balls strikes the ground, that is the first ball or the second ball, either of those balls, if they strike the ground, then they may have some acceleration, otherwise their relative acceleration would remain 0 because they are going in air. So assuming air resistance is 0, so when the situation would be when the first ball is just going to strike the ground, we know that the first ball is ahead of the second. The first ball would be somewhere here and the second ball would be somewhere above it. So in even in that situation, from the current situation, that is at t equal to 1, to the situation when the ball first is just going to strike, has been no change in relative acceleration of the balls. That is, the acceleration of ball 1 with respect to 2 would remain 0, and we are supposed to find the velocity of the first ball, right? Velocity of the Find the relative velocity of the ball. Say, let's say we want to find the velocity of first ball with respect to second. So velocity of first ball, and let us say the downward direction is some positive direction. The velocity of first ball minus velocity of second ball is some 10 meters per second, and that is at equal to 1. So we know that it won't change at all. So it would remain 10 meters per second just before the first ball strikes the ground. What would happen just after the first ball had struck the ground? So just after the first ball had struck the ground, the velocity of the first ball would change to some 10 meter per second in our direction, and we would say that the first ball the second ball would be somewhere above it and the first ball would be somewhere here. So to do this, we need to know, okay, how much time has passed in actually bringing the first ball from the topmost point to the point where it has collided with ground. So this complete distance is 20 meters. So we can say half gt squared, that is the distance of free falling body covered in t time, is some h. That h is some 20 meters, and you can guess that the value of time t for this particular calculation would be some 2 seconds. So in 2 seconds, the first ball would reach the ground, and it would just strike the ground and it would bounce off it. So its velocity has reversed. So its velocity just after it has strike the ground was not actually 10. It would be 20, right? Because it is now traveling. Because it has traveled for 2 seconds, right? So its velocity would be some 20 meters per second, and the second ball, which is going downwards, it would also have some velocity. The velocity of second ball at this time would be some 10 meters per second. So why would be 10 meter per second? Since it was dropped at 1 second and now the time is 2 equal to 2 seconds. So that means it has taken 1 second in coming from this position to this position. So its velocity would be acceleration into time taken in changing the positions, that is 1 second. So it would give us the time as 10 meter per second. So what would be the relative velocity? The relative velocity in this case would be velocity of the first ball minus velocity of the second ball. So this was the first case. For the second case, velocity of the first ball would be actually minus 20 meter per second. Since we have taken downward direction as positive, velocity of second ball is some 10 meters per second. So this would give us the velocity of the balls as minus 30 meters per second. So that would be the velocity of first ball with respect to second ball just after it has struck the ground. So let us proceed to our next question. So there is a hot air balloon and is going vertically upwards with a speed of 5 meters per second. A stone is dropped from it at 0 seconds. Find the separation between the balloon and the stone at 5 seconds. So again, we have to approach this question with an open mind, right? That if we see this question in our normal exam, then would it strike us that this question can be done easier with the concept of relative velocity? So, trying to remember whenever such questions comes in place that although we can consider both hot air balloon and a stone as two separate bodies, what is happening is that there is a hot air balloon and is going vertically upwards, and as it is going vertically upwards, a stone is being dropped at some time. You have to find what is the separation between the balloon and the stone at some 5 seconds, and we have to assume that the balloon is way far upwards, that is, the stone is not striking the ground at all within that period of 5 seconds. So what would be the separation? So what one thing which we can do is to consider hot air balloon as an object. We can find its displacement. We can consider stone as an object, same object, and we can find its displacement. We can add up both the displacements, or we can subtract both the displacement, or whatever, and we can find the complete separation between the balloon and the stone. So that can be one approach. But in that approach, we are doing this question in ground frame, and that would require two equations, right? And require more calculation. So what is the better approach is to think that how can I apply my concepts of relative velocity or equation of relative velocity in this particular question. So let us try. So we have to find the separation between the balloon and the stone. So let us say we are sitting in the balloon itself and we are seeing the whole situation. We have ourselves dropped the stone from the balloon. So what would happen? So you have a hot air balloon over here and some person is sitting inside the balloon and he has dropped the stone. So let us take balloon as our frame of reference and stone is what is being observed. So we have to find the displacement of the stone with respect to balloon, and it immediately strikes your memory that or what logic that we have to use the equation initial velocity of stone with respect to balloon into time plus half of acceleration of stone with respect to balloon into t square. So it just becomes a question of evaluating what are the initial velocities, relative initial velocities, and what are the relative accelerations. So the important thing is that the relative acceleration of the stone with respect to balloon or any other question in which we are trying to apply this particular equation, the relative acceleration must remain constant with time. That is, it cannot be a variable with time. So this we already know from our ideas of kinematics that whenever we are applying equation x equal to ut plus half t square, then the acceleration must be uniform. Acceleration cannot be non-uniform. In the same way, the acceleration of stone with respect to balloon have to be a constant, and it is a constant in this case, which is pretty lucky for us. The acceleration of stone, as you can easily guess, is minus g. Let us take the upward direction as positive. We can take any direction arbitrarily as positive, and the balloon which is going upward with a constant speed, so it has no acceleration whatsoever. It's going with a speed of 5 meter per second, no change in speed. Acceleration of balloon becomes zero. A displacement of stone with respect to balloon. The initial velocity of stone with respect to balloon. So how does the balloon seize the stone initially? So this is particular from the language of the question. Stone is being dropped from it. Dropped, that means with respect to the balloon, the stone is not traveling at any velocity whatsoever. Has no velocity, we're simply dropping it. And this is what we can say comes from the simplification, which comes from the idea of relative velocity. That when we are observing from a frame which is moving, sometimes the case is reduced to a very small value. So half of acceleration of stone with respect to balloon, acceleration a stone minus acceleration of balloon would give you minus g only, as acceleration of stone minus acceleration of balloon is acceleration of stone with respect to balloon. Acceleration of stone is minus g and balloon is 0. So this is minus g into t square, and the time taken in the whole motion is 5 seconds. So this gives you minus 10 by 2 into time, which is 5 n square. So this gives us the complete distance traveled by the stone as seen by the balloon as minus 125 meters, which matches our observation. The stone should go in downward direction, so the sign is right, and it travels a distance of 125 meters with respect to the balloon. So this is one of those cases in which taking the idea of relative velocity simplifies our question very well. You are encouraged to solve this question with in the ground frame and frame two separate equations. Next question: a particle starts moving in a straight line from the origin at t equal to 0 with an acceleration a equal to 2 meter per second square. Another particle starts from x equal to 10 with a constant velocity of 6 meter per second in negative x direction at 1 second. Then and where would the particle meet? So this is a classic question. Now two particles are starting their motion at different times and their initial positions and accelerations are given. The velocity of the second particle is some 6 meter per second, and we have to find where the particle would meet. So let us draw an x-axis. So this is our x-axis, and let us say this is our origin. This is some 10 meters. So a particle starts moving at t equal to 0 with an acceleration plus 2 meter per second square. So one particle is moving in this direction by 2 meter per second square. Another particle is moving in negative x direction at t equal to 1 second. So it starts moving in negative x direction at t equal to 1 second with a velocity of 6 meters per second. So where would the particle meet? Okay. So we have come back to actually the first idea which we started with. Then that when we are doing a motion in one dimension, first of all drop the vectors and just stick with directions. Anything going in negative x direction carries a negative sign. Anything which goes in positive x direction carries a positive sign. So let us say I want to write the velocity of whatever value, velocity of let's say the first particle is some a and the second particle is some b. The velocity of particle a would be some at, some value d. So this motion, the motion of particle a starts at t equal to 0 second, and of that of b starts at t equal to 1 second. So let us assume that they are going to meet at some t time. So when they are going to meet, let us say somewhere in the middle, A or B are sharing some common position on this straight line. The time would be same for both of them, right? But the time interval, right? That is the time taken by A to reach this position and B to reach this position would be different because B is starting a bit late. So that means the time available for B to reach this particular point is t minus 1, and that is the important point which we are trying to focus on. That is the time available for A's complete t. Let's say they are meeting at t time. So what time has A taken in reaching this point? It has taken t time. Now the time has already started for B, but is not moving. So it starts moving at t equal to 1. So that means the time available for B to reach this position, to travel this complete distance, is the total time t which has passed minus the time it has not utilized in reaching that position. So which time would be t minus 1. So they simply have some different times to reach the same position. So what would be the distance traveled by A? The distance traveled by A would be some half acceleration into time taken t squared and some initial velocity which is 0. So it would be traveling some distance plus this would be the distance traveled by A. Let us mark this with Sm. Its initial velocity is 0. Or the distance traveled by B, we are talking in distances. So distance traveled by B would be simply 6 into t minus 1. Its speed is 6. Time available with B is t minus 1. So it would travel this distance. And we know that sum of the distance traveled by A and the distance traveled by B is 10. So this comes to the equation t square plus 6t minus 6 is equal to 10. So t square plus 6t minus 16 is equal to 0. So t would come out to be 8 seconds and minus 2 seconds. So they are to travel some 10 seconds of distance, right? And their acceleration is this much, 60 minus this, and they have to travel a distance of 10 meters. Let us see. So they have to travel 100 meters or 10 meters. What distance? They have to travel 10 meters, right? So in this particular time they would travel a lot. So I think the time here should be minus 8 plus 2 seconds, right? Because in 2 seconds it would travel 4 meter and in 1 second it would travel 1 meter. So this should be our times, that is t equal to 2 seconds. At t equal to 2 seconds, the points A and B would meet at the some common meeting point. And where would they meet? The distance SA would be some 2 square, that is 4 meters. So they would meet after 2 seconds and they would travel a distance of 4 meters to come at the common point. So that's it for this particular lecture, and the next lecture we'll be continuing with the idea of the Rain Man problem and its questions. Thank you for joining.